Well, okay, hi again, and welcome to Exploring the World's Special Places, the Sensory Arts and Sciences presentations from Templates for Change. And here we are in the Hidden Story, Part 4, Alerting and Connecting. So now let's have a look at this. I'm John again, and I'm going to be doing this presentation. And we're well into this now. We're looking at the world's extraordinary places, and we're trying to discover what is not so obvious. And already we've seen how we can shrink our expectations and wait purposefully, you might say, as if as a guest, to see if the living story of the place might show us around, might give us ideas and places we could explore ourselves. Now in this next part, we're looking to alert ourselves to what may be present for us to connect to, and then connecting to the hidden stories. Okay, so let's move on into this. Now, it's often too easy, isn't it, to go to somewhere and to rush about and focus just on what our eyes can see. And our eyes are actually only two small postage stamps, aren't they? And they are incredibly important and valuable, but we have so many other sensing abilities in our lives that what we're now going to try and do is to use them all, because we're trying to discover things that we've never experienced before. You might say things we haven't seen before. So we're now going to have to try and use many more of our sensing faculties and listen to what ideas they pass to us. Now, one of the ways of doing this is to, you might say, defocus somewhat on the idea of using our eyes and looking. And as we're saying, waiting, taking some time out, quietening down, and become a silent listening partner to all our other senses as we move around. And one excellent way of doing this when we go somewhere is to sit down and wait, as we've said before, and then to more focus not so much on what we see, but on other kinds of ideas and senses and feelings that we're getting while we're sitting there. And here's a nice example in the Brisbane Catholic Cathedral in Australia. A lovely quiet place where you can take time out and sit and start to listen to what your other sensing faculties are telling you. Now, in preparation for that, and to prime ourselves and our thoughts with ideas, it's actually quite useful to get some background information while you're waiting, or before you're waiting, or as part of a waiting process before you get there, when you get there. And so it's not such a bad idea, if you've got a guidebook, or you can get a guidebook when you arrive, to sit down and have a quiet cup of coffee and start your waiting process then, quietening yourself down. You might have been on a journey, well, that helps you to quieten all that down. Have a cup of coffee and just page through the guidebook and browse it and just sort of get a broad idea. Don't look for too many details, but just get a broad sense and idea of the place you're going to. And for example, things like the overall design, the use of the building or the place, what it was mainly used for, and what the cultural or religious indicators are. So you can kind of locate yourself a little bit to help your systems to explore further. And I remember doing this, visiting the Ben Youssef Madrasa in Marrakesh, sitting outside in a little cafe outside with a cup of coffee, having a look at what this place was about and preparing myself. And it's a wonderful, wonderful ancient Islamic school with all kinds of detection possibilities and exploration possibilities in using your senses in your systems there. So what we can then do, having alerted ourselves, is to start questions and thoughts to encourage all our sensing capabilities to get involved. Now, of course, that's going to depend on where we are, but they might include things like, well, why was this built here? What unusual events or ceremonies occurred in and around this site? If it's a house, what was the important room, or what were the people like, or what am I feeling as I sit and wait, as I think about this? And here's a classic example of a great mystery, isn't it, of this wonderful trilithon in Tonga. It's a bit like finding a part of Stonehenge in the South Pacific. Beautiful, fascinating, mysterious site with wonderful senses connected to it. And so we're going to be priming all our sensitivities and perceptions, and this is going to be really very important, because then we can start connecting to the site. We have this wealth of sensing faculties that we're aiming to use for all our connections. And Machu Picchu, of course, which is a fabulous, fascinating site, one of the most extraordinary places in the world to visit, has all sorts of fascinating interlinking sensory opportunities between the mountains and the site, inside the site itself, with the sky and the land, in all sorts of different ways. And so remember, we don't just have our five senses, we have our ideas, thoughts, instincts, more clairvoyant senses of places, and then in addition there are the atmospheres and the subtle energies of a place that we can often sense too. So what we're going to seek to do here is to encourage the place to show itself to us. Now, one of the best ways to do this, as we said, is for us to wait quietly in our special place as a guest, and as we connect, see what ideas and suggestions come to us about where we might go first, however surprising, incidentally, it might seem. For example, at this wonderful Confucian temple and old university in Hanoi, there's some fascinating places, but something drew me to these turtle steles, because they were quite extraordinary, quite remarkable, quite unique, and I discovered that they were a direct link to some of the wise people and professors who had been at that site, who had taught at that site, and were recognized in this way. And it was quite a remarkably moving personal experience to have a sense of connecting to a life of somebody that was there, lived there, in that space, in the same place that I was now standing. So in doing this, what we're going to do is follow the traces and paths that are suggested to us as we allow these ideas to guide us around. You might say as if the wisdom of the place itself was guiding us around, with that kind of idea in our minds, and allow the ideas we get to gently lead us around. Well, okay, I hope you've enjoyed that today, and you'll be back to be with me for the last part of this. And in the meanwhile, if you'd like to look at other TFC presentations, do have a look at www.templatesforchange.org and see the other things that we have there. Okay, well, I'll be back soon, and bye now.